Welcome to another episode of the Embracing Joy podcast. I'm so excited to introduce our return guest, Dr. Lindsey, who is a practicing anesthesiologist, and she also helps female physicians grow their emotional intelligence so they can become leaders, doctors, parents, and humans who make meaningful impact in their lives, careers, and the world. Thanks for joining us again, Lindsey.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, before we get started, we will play our warm-up game,
Oh,
which is
yes, I forgot about this. Okay, I'm
yeah,
ready.
which
Okay,
is
I'm ready.
it's called convergence. So you'll say the first word that comes to your mind on the
Okay.
count of three. One, two, three.
Cake.
Peace. Peace.
Piece
Okay.
of cake. Piece
Piece
of
of,
cake.
piece of cake.
Yeah.
All right. Something that connects those two.
Mm.
One, two, three. Rain.
Celebration.
Celebration is a good one. For some reason, rainbow was on my mind. I'm
Okay,
thinking of a rainbow cake.
I like that.
Okay, so celebration and rainbow.
Okay.
Okay. One, two, three.
Spring.
Pot of gold. Because I'm
Okay.
thinking of
St.
I'm thinking
Patrick's Day.
of St. Patrick's Day. Yeah.
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 Spring's pretty close. They're like near the beginning of spring is St. Patrick's Day.
Day.
Pot of gold.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a good start. So pot of gold and spring, something that connects the two.
Hmm.
Okay. One, two, three. Flowers.
Flowers. Wow.
Ah.
Nice.
There we go.
I like that.
So, with that being said, we'll get started into our questions for today.
Sure.
So we've kind of explored in conversation about how emotional intelligence can be a foundation for leadership. How would you say for physicians, once they grow in emotional intelligence, how can they move beyond simply managing emotions and cultivating deeper joy and fulfillment in their career and personal life?
That's a good question. I think when I met with you last, almost a year ago, probably, I think between then and now, I've done a lot of, continued my own studying of emotional intelligence, and I've done more, worked more with women, and just done more in the field. And so my awareness now is deeper than it was previously. And so I think what I would say is when we met last time, I think I said something along the lines of, by definition, emotional intelligence is self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management, which is true, but it's so much more than just saying check, 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 I've got all of those things. So managing our emotions is certainly one piece of it, and by managing our emotions, I think most people would think don't yell when you feel angry, or don't shut down when you feel intimidated, but instead do something more productive with your emotions.
Mhm.
But I think understanding that emotional intelligence is a spectrum and not just an all or nothing, right? Because to make it similar to IQ, it's not like you have no IQ or you have an IQ. You have a range. People fall within a range. So being able to manage your emotions effectively is certainly important, but there's so much more about emotional intelligence that can affect our quality of life. I was talking to you about the survey that I had done before, and I don't want to necessarily take too much time to do that, but a couple of things stood out. Well, I guess should I pause here?
Yeah.
I don't want to go too far deep into that.
Yeah, well, we could pause and talk about, first of all, the survey. You could talk about the purpose behind the survey, kind of what led
Yeah.
you to do the survey for female physicians.
Yeah, so last year I got certified to administer and interpret the EQI, which is an assessment that's administered by MHS or Multi Health Systems. And it's scientifically validated and pretty rigorous and reproducible. It's used in a lot of like executive coaching and stuff. And I just was interested for my own knowledge. Well, like what do we as physicians, where are we at with emotional intelligence? What kind of training did we get? What is our emotional intelligence? So I created a survey and I put together something like 25 questions that dealt with various topics within the overarching emotional intelligence field. And then I just sent it out to a bunch of women, female physicians, as many as I could. And I actually got 120 responses, which I was really humbled by, because that many women, some of them who knew me and some who did not, took the time to fill it out without really getting much from it. So it was an honor to be able to have that many people respond. Would you like me to talk about the results?
Sure, let's talk about the results.
Well, I think I don't want to just spend all of our time talking about it, but it's hard to answer your question now because it's hard to answer it simply now because I feel like I have a lot more awareness now than I did when we last met. So the overarching, so two things basically the survey showed was that, number one, female physicians are emotionally intelligent. So to your point, a lot of us have very strong empathy. A lot of us do regulate our emotions well. Some of us bury it, as some of us let it come out later, but at least from a professional perspective, most of us do a pretty good job of balancing our emotions. The thing is that the two most interesting questions that I got, that I put in the survey, were the last two, which was, how satisfied are you with the balance between medicine and motherhood, for those of you that are moms, and how satisfied are you with your life as it currently is? And then the grading was, I'm completely satisfied, I'm somewhat satisfied, I'm neither satisfied or dissatisfied, and then, it kept going down from there. And only 13% of women who reported being moms said that they felt completely satisfied with how they were balancing medicine and motherhood, and only 18% of all of the women said they were completely satisfied with their lives, which
Mhm.
is not that much, right?
Right.
And so when you ask me, well, what else can we do besides just being in control of our emotions? The four characteristics that were common among the women who did report feeling completely satisfied were the things that I'm starting to focus on now, both in my own life, but then also with the women that I work with. So being emotionally intelligent, yes, does mean being aware of your emotions, being in control of them, having empathy, managing teams, but it also means being intentional with your emotional intelligence. And so should I list them? Should I list the four characteristics?
Sure.
So of the women who reported feeling completely satisfied, the things in common that they had were regular self-care. So they were able to identify that self-care is important, and they were able to do self-care that fulfilled them, that brought them joy. So it's more than just binge watching Netflix or something. It's actually something that restores you. Then they also had effective ways of managing stress. So in the moment when you're feeling stressed, instead of being, exploding or bottling it up, they have effective ways of kind of bringing themselves back down in the moment. They had an overall positive inner voice, which is a huge aspect of emotional intelligence. So how do you talk to yourself on average? We all talk to ourselves probably in a negative way at times, but what's the average voice inside your head? And then whether or not you have a clear picture for your life. And I think that's the thing I would focus on the most when you ask me, well, what else can women do in the emotional intelligence realm, is use emotional intelligence training to gain a clear picture of what you want out of your life so that you can live a life that brings you joy. That was very long-winded, but there you go.
Mhm. Well, thank you. Well, it's interesting the type of responses that you were able to get. And so a majority of the women, even though they're physicians and mothers, a majority of the women were actually dissatisfied. Did you see any commonalities to why they were dissatisfied?
So interestingly, my first thought was, well, these are women that have less stress, or excuse me, have more stress in their lives. But although women who reported feeling completely satisfied did have lower rates of stress, meaning, and by stress I mean feeling like an imposter, feeling like you're in survival mode, experiencing burnout, these sorts of things, they still reported having these situations. So the women that are completely satisfied, it's not like they're like, living in a cottage next to a brook in the forest and, picking berries all day, right? They still have stress in their lives.
Mhm.
But those four things that I mentioned were way more prevalent in the women that were completely satisfied compared to everyone who reported less than being completely satisfied. In your podcast, we focus on joy and how can we have joy in our lives. And from that survey, I've started being a little bit more focused with the women that I work with in what do you want out of your life? I know that sounds so silly, or maybe not silly, but duh, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a mom. I want to do this. But it's like, but who are you and what do you want? And do you have a plan for how to get there? I feel like a lot of us, we spent our youth training and we had goals, score well on the MCAT, score well on the STEP exam, get into the best residency, all this kind of stuff. And now we're done chasing all of those things. And what are our goals? We may have small goals like buy that new car or have a second kid or whatever. But when we're not chasing these things anymore, I think sometimes there's a sense of like, what am I doing? What's left? And so having a vision for what you want your life to look like, I think gives us direction. Because the majority of us, once you're done with residency, you just fly away. You're done, And there's a disconnect there, I think.
Well, there are different types of goals, right?
Yeah.
That you have. And as far as the vision, it's different because you're not in the same pool of people that are going through a similar experience with you. Now you have to kind of figure out what those goals are for yourself.
Exactly, yeah.
And for your family, instead of thinking about your class of medical students or your class of residents.
Totally.
Or yeah. So it's very different, but those big, having a family, having a kid, those are big goals, definitely. But
I think it's like, once, for those of us that are moms, once you become a mom, at least for me, life got even busier. And it was harder to kind of keep my feet on the ground. And by feet, what do I mean by that? I guess I mean it felt harder to feel like I was in control. I had to let go of a lot of control, and that was hard. And now I'm choosing to be a little bit more intentional with how I live my life. Because I think without being intentional, it's very easy for your life to just pass you by, or for you to be maybe an observer, less of a player, I guess,
mhm. Right. So it's paying attention to those things that are within our control, which sometimes are a lot less than what we think.
Yeah, that's true.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Or at least within our ability to influence,
Right.
Maybe we can't control it, but we can influence it a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So with that being said, how can we use emotional intelligence more as physicians? Because it seems like we need to use it more internally as well. Well,
Yeah.
these physician moms, they needed to use it more in the survey. The recommendation, I guess, that I picked up is that they need to use it more internally for their own self-care and their own self-awareness.
Yeah, I think that's true. Female physicians, a lot of whom are moms, at least in my survey, not all, but I think at least 80% were moms, are really empathetic, are really caring, are nurturing, are all these wonderful things. So again, like IQ, you can have a strong emotional intelligence, but if it's not applied appropriately, it may not be as effective as you want it to be. And so those women that did report complete satisfaction, yes, they did have, I sort of coined the term, not coined it, but what I was calling it was that they have intentional emotional intelligence. Essentially, they are intentional with how they use it. So they can use they can use their emotional intelligence effectively to parent, to doctor, to maintain relationships and all of this. And also they're able to look inward and apply that same care, that same nurturing to themselves.
What's the difference? Oh, sorry.
No, please.
What's the difference between emotional intelligence and self-compassion?
Ooh, good question. So emotional intelligence is an overarching concept that includes several pillars that describes the awareness and management of our internal world, I guess. This is my own definition, I should say. To me, self-compassion is a choice, is a way of taking care of self. And I would kind of put that into the category of the inner voice, the inner nurturing that we allow ourselves to receive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so is inner emotional like so that they can have that. The reason why I asked is because they need more inner emotional intelligence. It's more also self-compassion.
Yeah, that's true. Because a lot of the women that would say that they felt less than completely satisfied, they when asked, "Do you regularly practice self-care?" They would say no, or I have no way of, I do it inconsistently, or I have no system. How well do you feel like you manage stress? I don't manage it well at all, or I manage it, but it's not great. How do you talk to yourself? Do you talk to yourself in a positive voice or a negative voice or somewhere in between? Most of them said somewhere in between or negative. And then do you have a clear picture for what you want your life to look like? Most of them said I have an idea or I have no clear picture. It was very clear that the women that felt completely satisfied, they scored higher in all four of those categories. And this is just my survey, right? This is not scientific. It would never go into any sort of journal or anything. So I'm not saying this is the end all be all, but what I am saying is this is not just some random thing you're reading on Doximity or whatever. This is my data. Like, women that I surveyed gave me this information. So I'm mostly just reporting what I learned.
Mhm.
And it makes sense. If you're taking care of yourself, if you're nurturing yourself, showing yourself self compassion, making time for yourself, then you have a baseline level of kind of function, of joy, of happiness. In those periods when you're experiencing increased stress, if you have effective ways of managing stress, whether that's, breathing techniques or pausing or just all kinds of different things, then you can sort of help yourself come down during those spikes, so you're not staying in that stressful state for extended
Mhm.
periods of time. When you're in those stressful states, or when you make mistakes, or when you're feeling guilt, or when you're experiencing stress, when you can talk to yourself in a supportive, compassionate way, you're more likely to experience a greater sense of joy and happiness. And then when you have a clear picture for your life, you're able to make decisions. You're able to, what do I mean when I say clear picture? I just mean, you know what you want out of your life, you know what your values are, and your life is in alignment with those values. That's what I mean. When you're doing those four things, based on this survey, these women feel like they're satisfied, even though they're experiencing the same issues in healthcare, because all the women that I surveyed were practicing clinically in various specialties, but they were all clinically practicing. And the age range was anywhere from like still in training all the way up to 20 plus years out of residency. So that wasn't even something that wasn't significant. I didn't notice anything significant with age, is what I'm trying to say.
Mhm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
you're right. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, to tell me.
I just was going to say, I feel like, when you're in medical school, when you're in residency, you're going after all these external things because that's what we have to do. We're in this rat race together, right? And then you're done. And yes, exactly what you said. The internal focus sometimes gets missed because we kind of still stay in that rat race mentality, even though we're done. And now we're in, you know, 35 to 45 years old, and we're kind of like, is this it? What am I doing?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, tell me more about how you have found more joy through emotional intelligence.
Like personally, or when I work with people, or both?
You could provide an example of working with someone and
Sure.
and or if you don't have an example of working with someone, then you could provide yourself. It's up to you.
I think if this is something that I'm going to be talking about, right, I think it's reasonable that I provide my own personal example from a place of vulnerability. And I think that would just be that my relationships are much stronger now that I've been doing this for a while than previously. I am someone, uh, I have pride, I don't like being wrong. And that comes out most with my husband, right? And I don't like being wrong. And because of my own, journey with this, I'm not perfect, right? I still make mistakes and stuff, but I have a greater sense of understanding and patience and compassion for our relationship because of my work that I've been doing for myself. So I think that would be a personal example. And then emotional intelligence training with the women that I work with, I think, again, these women are smart. These women are highly educated. They're high achievers. They've gotten this far, and they definitely have certain components of emotional intelligence, and empathy being one of them. But I think having a space where you can so this assessment that I was talking about, it's objective, so I can't manipulate it in any way. So when you take this assessment and you see your scores and we compare that to your life, it is sort of like a way of slowing down and seeing yourself objectively when maybe you haven't for a long time. We see ourselves objectively in test scores and stuff like that, but it's hard to see yourself objectively in regards to your emotional intelligence because you can't be objective for the most part, right? It's mostly subjective. It's your story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that I would like female physicians to know is that having an area for growth and emotional intelligence does not make you bad. Having the awareness to want to grow makes you really powerful. And I think that's what I've learned with these women, and that's my favorite part about it.
Wow. With that being said, I think that is a good area for us to end on
Yes.
because having that awareness to want to grow makes you powerful.
Yeah.
That's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
And with that being said, our topic is joy. So, who is a model for joy for you in your life, Dr. Lindsey?
I know last time I said my daughter. I feel like I should pick somebody else.
You don't have to.
I can't. I just have to pick her. Last year she's a year older now, but she's still that amazing little child who no, she's not little. She's not a little kid. She would not like when I said that. She's a big kid. She just loves being alive, and I love watching her be alive.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. And then, if you were building a cake of joy, what would the top 3 ingredients be?
Gratitude. There's always something to be grateful for. Spirituality, because it connects me to everything around me. And nature, because for me, that is something that provides me with a sense of recentering.
I love that answer. So, thank you. So, if our audience were to want to learn more, especially female physicians, or they want to learn more about your work and what you do, how can they contact you?
I have a website that I have been working on over the last year. It's called theauthenticpulse.com. I'm an anesthesiologist, so that's a little bit of a nod to my anesthesia job, but there's a bunch of stuff there. I did a recording going over the results of the survey. You could look at it there if it's something you're interested in, but yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Lindsey. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining this episode. And for all of our listeners, please make sure that you like this episode, share it with a friend, especially a physician or colleague. Take care and have a joyful day. Bye.
Bye.